Price per hour is a kind of a popular rule of thumb for the value of a game. Is it worth that price? Is the game too short for $60 and all that sort of stuff? Isn't that right? Jake Kulkowski and Gareth Evans, who are sitting here with me, Mike Williams.
Absolutely.
Right.
If anything, it's been a bit of a debate online. Some people think it's a fair way of looking at things, but others think it's silly and a little bit narrow-minded or something, just to base the quantity of something as is it that looking at the value of it as purely being about quantity rather than quality, or putting too much focus on quantity. Right. Maybe $1 per hour or £1 per hour is kind of the thing you hear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, taking that idea and running with it is Green Man Gaming. So that's the digital storefront that sells keys mainly for PC games. They've added a new feature to their store which shows statistics about the games that they sell. So they actually did this quite a while ago, but the internet is only just kind of waking up to it. The most eye-catching statistic they've added being cost per hour. Now, this is a graph and a little number that you've got at the side that tells you. So if you look at certain games, it says, this is worth 25 pence per hour or whatever. So it gives you a rough idea of how much you're paying per hour of the game. Trying to quantify how much game you get for your money, which I think is the first time this idea of price per hour has really been kind of solidified outside of forums and comment threads and stuff like that. Would you guys agree, or can you think of anything? I think this is the first time, I've got to say. I think this is the first time someone's really actively done something with it and put it on a storefront.
Well, put it there, at the point of purchase. Yeah,
exactly.
Like how long to beat websites like that are a good way of aggregating average game times and things like that. And people, pretty forthcoming with the amount of time they've spent on games and Steam reviews. But right there, right when you can make the purchase, to have that information readily available. Yeah, that's the first time I've seen it. It's like being at the deli counter in like a supermarket, and you see, when you're buying like cheese or meat, and it says how much is it per kilogram.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like that, isn't it?
You got the price, you got the weight, but you got the price per kilogram as well.
Exactly,
so it's exactly that kind of idea. It's not gone down well with developers and publishers that well at all. I would say there's a Reset Era thread that's about 180 posts long at the time of recording, filled with a debate about it. With both sides of the argument, of course, one side says things like this, quotes, "I think adding more data / metrics is a good idea, but this is a pretty dumb / shallow way of doing it." Another one says, "I think this may do more harm than good, not a fan." Another one says, "This is stupid. Where's the quality per hour chart?" So quality rather than quantity per hour.
How the fuck do you measure that?
Well, exactly, but that's the
review score, is it?
That's the point. Yeah, then that's the point, isn't it? If you can measure the quantity like this, then why not the quality? Some pointing out that this kind of thing is why AAA games are bloated to the gills, and I have to agree wholeheartedly with that. Looking at games like Shadow of War, which I personally wasn't a fan of, because of how bloated it was. Right. It was a massive game. If all you're looking for is quantity, God, you've got a bargain on your hands with Shadow of War, because there's a lot of stuff going on in there. Some saying, though, on the other side, that it's the market that's demanding this. Gamers want to see this kind of thing, and GMG, the Green Man Gaming, is just reacting. Some were in the Reset Era thread were welcoming having more info, and some were fans of it. So do you think there's a demand for it, Gas? Do you think that people want to know?
Yeah, I definitely do, and I think it's part of when you make a purchase, you have to be as informed as possible about how long the game's going to last you, because it is a consideration, it's a factor. However, putting it right there front and center as you're buying a game, people might interpret it to mean that the game isn't worth the money, whereas in fact you need to look at all the factors, not just how long you're going to be able to play the game for. There's more involved in that decision of purchasing the game, which it doesn't really enlighten you on. I
would, in terms of how prominent it is on the store page, I would kind of put it, just this is my interpretation, I'd put it on the same level as like Steam reviews. So you get the page looks the same when you load it up, but you scroll down, and after a while you hit this thing that is just a graph that's pretty customizable, pretty inspired by the Steam review system, actually, in terms of how you can look at different scales and stuff. And that is kind of how prominent it is. So all you've got to do is scroll down to look for more information, and there it is.
Yeah.
This idea that they've put cost per hour specifically, because I saw some people suggesting they should have just put how long to beat graphs on it, and not say how much it is per hour, but say this is how long the game is. Yeah. And you can make your own judgment then, looking at and you're just arming them with more information. What do you guys think of that?
It's weird, isn't it, that they've put the cost to it. So you're playing a game subconsciously, you just spent an hour in a game and you go, oh, that was 86p's worth.
Yeah, so you can see the coins just kind of...
Or that wasn't worth £4. There's great examples.
Or if the game's on sale, for instance, you think, oh, I've just played an hour, but I've saved myself a couple of quid.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It would have been
shaved off
quid.
That fun hour. Yeah. Or this hour of the game was shit. They could have cut that off and I would have saved myself 80p. You know, it's weird because what you're doing is you're making... as you're playing it you feel like every hour you're playing you're going, well, it's weird. It takes that one purchase
a bit too much,
a point where it's dragging it out a little bit. And I think that people can look a little bit too much into this, and we do see a lot of people all over the internet say that I don't know how it's sort of become the thing, but $1 or £1 or euro, whatever, per hour is the kind of what people expect. That's the expectation rate, which is, you can find that in all of your AAA games. A lot of the people that say that actually seem to speak out against AAA developers, but Ubisoft, EA and all that, they're making 40-hour experiences traditionally. Does that make them good though?
I mean, if your primary consideration, if your budget is really small for your annual game budget, for instance, if it's like $100, you want to get value for money. You want to get that game that might last $100 or whatever. If it's $200, if your budget is like $1,000 on games, then you're not going to quibble over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all to do with value for money, and I'm thinking the youngsters are going to be hit the most by, or be affected most by, how many hours of gaming you're going to get out of, because they're not the ones who can go out splashing cash on games willy-nilly, right? They're going to have to think carefully about what they spend their money on, if it's pocket money or if it's like paper round money or whatever. So I think that you'll hear the youngsters be very loud about, oh, it's not worth the money because it's not 60 hours, it's not 100 hours. Persona 5 is awesome because it's 100 hours.
Yep.
Well, not considering the gameplay itself.
It's true.
There was a conversation around the time that Mad Max the game came out, because that was so divisive between critics and the actual people who bought the game and played it, because it was a quantity thing. And Mad Max is not a great game. It is, however, a good game that's very long. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's really a very positive thing. If you drop 40 quid on a game and you can play that game for hours and hours and hours, you do feel like I got my money's worth out of it. But a critic will look at that and think, this is bloated, this is taking too long, why am I going here, why am I going there, why am I just ticking off boxes in this vast open world? It's a different thing. So in kind of defense of the move, I guess, Green Man Gaming CEO Paul Suliok spoke to PCGamesIndustry.biz. There was a kind of a lot of waffle in what he said, but here's the main thrust of what he said.
Right.
Quotes, "We believe that playing video games is a very cost-effective form of entertainment, and the cost per hour stat allows the community to make informed choices so they can decide how they spend their time and money against other activities. The stat was introduced in response to demand from our community, who are looking for different ways to decide how to spend their money, and is not linked in any way to the value or experience of the game. This can be done through customer reviews and discussions, which are also available on the Green Man Gaming store." Now, I think that second paragraph, the stat was introduced in response to demand from our community. So it probably wasn't their idea. They probably were responding to like requests for it. And also the fact that they're saying this doesn't tell you what the value of the experience is. But that's the problem, I think, because it kind of implies that it does. Because if you look at a cost per hour and compare it with different games and stuff, that is what's going to happen. People are going to start saying, well, this isn't as valuable as I can drop less money on this and get more of a game, so I'll do that. Yeah. And that's why indies are worried, because indies are shorter.
Yeah, well, what are they basing? Do you happen to know if it's like mainline quest only, or is it on side quest? Because what I mean is like Witcher 3, 48 hours, round up to 50. Let's say the game's 50 quid when it comes out, so you've got your £1 an hour. But completionist Witcher run is about 160 hours, which then makes it about 30p an hour. Yeah, big difference there. Yeah, big difference, because you've just said something's per hour is £1 or 30p. And so that matters. So is there an option for both or what? Because it's just going to make AAA developers pad it out with shite side quests, because they can say, well, the main story is 15 hours, but everything, if you gather all of the flowers, then it's 190 hours. Because then, if you're measuring it by that completionist metric, all of a sudden it's good value for money, technically. So
that's exactly. There's two concerns with all of this, and that's my main one, because I play a lot of AAA games, and I get bored to tears with the likes of Assassin's Creed, even Origins, I have to confess, and Shadow of War. They just bore me because of the sheer amount of stuff and the huge scale of the map. It's just, I think there's so much quantity. It's not attractive to me. The second thought is why indies are nervous, because if an indie game is $14.99 and 2.5 hours long, but is a masterpiece game of the year contender,
right? Yeah,
is the sales of that game gonna get hurt because people will look at that and think that is not worth my money because it's only 2.5 hours long?
Yeah, I mean it's very difficult for indies in this day and age. I mean, we've played Far Lone Sales. I have over the last 24 hours. That was a very short indie game, and that kind of thing where you're paying over £10 and you're paying it for 3 hours, and
limbo inside, that sort of shit.
Yes, and I mean games that Edith Finch.
Night in the Woods is a bit longer, 8 hours, but still shorter, definitely shorter. Yeah. Look, this is the way I see it. This is a shit analogy, but I'm gonna in there, right? Where I live, there's a lot of people that go on holidays and they like getting pissed. Yeah, they like going and buying Carlin because it's 24 cans of beer for about 10 quid. There's also people like me with shit haircuts and beards, and we go and get craft beer, craft cider. It's a bit of an artisanal product. That's what the indie game is, isn't it? It's a bit expensive. You're getting a better story. You're getting a little bit of a experience, but some people don't care. They just want to get pissed. They don't care about all the hoity-toity £4 jars of organic peanut butter. And that's kind of what indie gaming is, because to get your year's worth of gaming, you're going to have to buy about 15 indie games. Yeah. Where you can just buy Persona 5 and you are done, mate. 160 hours. So it's that quality versus quantity thing, which I've got to give credit to you guys for saying in the office earlier. If you look at any other product, quantity doesn't equal quality. So it's just two different needs, two different people. Well, the thing is, what gets confusing is when people who are on that sort of I want as many hours as possible, then also start piping up about, and I expect great quality as well, and they assume that you can't have one without the other, and you totally can.
But that's what this does, is puts the focus on the quantity, and then where is the focus on the quality then? Because that is the issue. Like I was saying earlier in the office, you don't judge a bottle of wine or something like that, or anything else except video games on how much of it you get. Movies, TV series. If anything, you complain that a TV series is too long. Movies can be too long or something. But you do it with games because you spend so much time in them. You can spend so much time in there. And one thing I really have to say before we wrap it up as well is, where do the stats come from? Because initially I thought it was how long to beat. That was and that was the only website I thought that did this. Well, no, this is their own internal accurate statistics, they say, calculated using 2 bits of data points, which is gameplay time recorded by their own community using Playfire, because GMG acquired Playfire in 2012, which is the PC gaming platform. So they've got data from their own community, and they use the current sale price of their own store. And that is how they come up with it. So that they're not using third party, they're not having like volunteers tell them or anything. They're just using their own data from what they can see from their customers and using their own prices. So that's how they're coming up with these price points.
And this is a conversation that ties in with the whole how expensive are games as well. Because if you're developing the game and you're selling the game, it doesn't matter to you how many hours of the game people get to play. It's like how much did you spend creating this game? And for indies, obviously you're not going to make your money back if you're charging £3 for a game because it's only 3 hours. Whereas that's a primary consideration when they're putting the game on sale, and that's not a factor at all in when you're buying. So again, this is the whole how much you're getting for your money and how sustainable is it?
Absolutely.
Are you getting your value for your money and all that shit?
Gaming is such a massively diverse and varied entertainment medium that you can get a 1.5 hour experience and you can get a 120 hour experience, and that is the same thing. That's not true of many other things, I don't think. That's where all this comes from. So the pricing conversation is going to go on for a long time yet, and that's what we think about this. It is a pretty big topic. It's the first time that this kind of thing has happened, as far as I'm aware. Let us know what you think of it down in the comments below. Please remember to like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. There should be another video on your screens right now if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.